Hi everyone, I'm Jake, and I'm doing this solo today, unfortunately. We've been very busy, and Nadia couldn't take the time out of her busy day, unlike me, to be able to go see a 3.5 hour movie in theaters. So she's going to see it at some point, I don't know when, but she insisted I go see it without her. I wanted to share my quick thoughts about the film. It'll come as no surprise to any of you that it's a stone cold masterpiece. I really love Martin Scorsese, but I tried not to have any expectations for it. I was not looking forward to the runtime. We've been having to sit through 3 hour long superhero movies and all of that, expecting movies to be 2.5 hours long when they're like the middle film in a YA trilogy or something. So sitting down for this, though, I wasn't expecting the kind of just relentless, incredible filmmaking. I mean, obviously it's Martin Scorsese, but this movie just impacted me in a way that I hadn't felt since The Wolf of Wall Street, in terms of like a Scorsese film. Beautiful and dark and deeply sad. And I knew going in, like, okay, this is going to be a downer based on the subject matter, which is based on real murders of the Osage people in the 1920s and whatnot. I knew it was going to be a downer. I didn't know how the angle it was going for. I'm going to do a spoiler section later, but it's such an amazing movie because I think it does what Scorsese does best and does so uniquely in his films, which is it indicts the viewer in the actions that are going on. Martin Scorsese, the Catholic director, really good at making the audience feel guilty. The binaries are not really there. It's just a landscape of all sorts of different moralities and feelings, and guilt, I think, is just a huge, huge part of this movie. Basically, it's about just the banality of evil in a lot of ways. Because this is a movie about someone like descending into the darkness, a part of an evil system, an individual just losing themselves to the system. Either, it's like Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street. We're talking about Goodfellas, or Casino. I mean, a lot of his movies are kind of about that. And this is sort of like, it's a Western, but it's also a gangster film in a way. Or it's less about why these things are happening, why the murders are happening, but just how. And it's very procedural and methodical in the way it charts these characters and what they're doing. And it's really jarring, honestly. I think that's what makes it so effective, is that you're watching this film and just when you're thinking a character can't sink any lower, they do easily out of nowhere. It's just like, oh wow, okay, yeah, we're going there. It's just firing on all cylinders. Everyone's talking about Lily Gladstone, who was fantastic. Obviously, like, DiCaprio's great, and he's playing a character who's not really bright. And that's kind of what's so interesting about this study of evil, is that at certain points you wonder, is he so stupid that he doesn't realize the evil that he's committing, and there's ambiguity about what is love. Like, that's what's so incredible about this film. Like, what is love? Can love exist with such evil? And how is that expressed? And how does that shape a community? How does that shape relationships between people? The more I sit with it, the more I realize, like, this is probably my favorite of, like, the later Scorsese movies. I love Silence, but this one, it felt so, like, perfectly tuned. Everything was just at this grand scale, but super intimate, dabbling in, like, Western tropes, or like There Will Be Blood. I was thinking about There Will Be Blood a little bit after watching this movie, another movie that deals with oil. And I wouldn't be surprised if more comparisons are made between those movies. But while There Will Be Blood, it's about the downfall of a character, but in that film, I never really bought that Daniel Plainview was ever good. He to me, feels so much more like a personification of evil, whereas in this film feels way more realistic. I love There Will Be Blood, and it's kind of like this expressionistic, very big show of this type of material, but Killers of the Flower Moon felt very human and very real. There's a romance element, and it's so interesting because I feel like with the material, this movie could have been taken in so many different directions, and I'll talk about that more in the spoilers, what I learned about how they decided to, like, reframe the script a little bit. For me personally, I really wanted to see it in theaters. That was really important to me. Nadia would be fine watching it at home. She doesn't really mind too much. But for me, I want to see especially long movies in theaters, because it's so tempting when you watch a movie at home that's really long to check your phone, to pause and say, oh, I'll finish the rest later. I have other stuff to do. There were a couple of times in the movie where I was like, oh, dang, it's probably been like 2 hours already. I kind of want to check my phone and see what's going on, just like a quick check. But in a movie theater, you can't. Well, you can, but you shouldn't. That really helps you feel like you're just in a different world. And the world is so rich and so lived in and full of just, all the cliches you can say about the set design and the costumes. And like Scorsese, I was learning about certain scenes that were improvised and how that added to the film. And the script is phenomenal, the way it really plays with our perceptions of good and evil and really puts us in the seat of evil in a way that I feel like he hasn't done since maybe like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. And I heard comparisons to those movies. Like this movie is more along the lines of Raging Bull and Taxi Driver in the sense that we're looking at it a very, very unlikable people who are evil or borderline evil, and Goodfellas is a little different. The Wolf of Wall Street, yeah, Jordan Belfort is horrible, but there's more fun to that movie in a sick way. This movie is so just heartbreaking on so many levels, but propulsive. And it's amazing that this subject, sort of in a way like Oppenheimer, is sort of dour, but there's more propulsive energy in both films. And that's a testament to the editing and the directing. How does this work? It's 3.5 hours, almost 3.5 hours long. Yet I was fascinated knowing what was going on, what was going to come. So I'm just going to talk spoilers real quick. 3, 2, 1, spoilers for Killers of the Flower Moon. The main relationship in the film is really interesting. And I get there are people who are criticizing that aspect because you can tell Scorsese is interested in nuance of that relationship and the essence of, does DiCaprio's character, does he love Lily Gladstone's character? Is he capable of love? What he's doing to her family, to her people, and to her eventually. Is he capable of love? And I think that Scorsese thinks yes, but there also isn't that there. It's fascinating. And I think that what is so troubling and confrontational about this movie is that we see that there is love in that relationship, but that evil can be part of that too, that evil involve itself in everything, and that a person doesn't have to be consciously, vehemently evil to be evil and do evil things. And it's really troubling. But there are people who are criticizing, like, no, the fact that they're trying to portray this relationship at all in a way that expresses love when you can't do that to someone without... You can't do what DiCaprio does while also expressing love and feeling love. And I think that you're valid, right? Like, I totally get that. Also, there is something even more disturbing about the fact that someone can feel love and do evil. It's the amazing, disturbing aspect of humanity and human beings. And it's just hard to look at. And that's what's so incredible about this performance, how they decided to center the narrative around the relationship. Apparently, early on in the screenwriting process for this movie, which is based on a book, apparently it was going to originally be framed around like the FBI investigation. And that's, I think, more of a larger part in the book about how the FBI is formed, how they had to get involved in this case. Most of the movie, I was like, I thought there was going to be FBI stuff. Like, I forgot that any of that was going to happen. I think really until like the last hour and a half or so of the movie, the FBI enters the picture and there's the investigations and all of that. And Jesse Plemons is there. But originally, I think DiCaprio was going to play the Jesse Plemons character. And that would have been such a different movie. It would have been more of like a procedural, like a investigation, what's going on with this town, asking, just more of a classical mystery, which would have been interesting and fine, and I think we would have a very good movie. But this way they decided to frame the movie, and this is why it's so important to like consider this with stories. Like the way you enter a story, the way you frame the narrative, from whose perspectives, it just changes everything. And that's what happened. Like once the movie decided to make it like we're framing Ernest's relationship to Lily Gladstone's character, once we're framing that in this world just out of World War I, trying to climb the social ladder, that changes everything. You really you identify more with the character just because you're spending more time with him, can see the love expressed in their relationship, the real human quality. And yet, the movie so seamlessly and so effortlessly shows this other side where it just seems like a slap in the face all of a sudden, where you're seeing them being happy, and then DiCaprio goes off and says like, hey, talking to some guy like, hey, you got to go kill her sister, because I like money. And it's like, damn, like and I get the people who are saying like this is the way they're trying to frame this is it's morally dubious or whatever. I don't know, like who knows, like if a person like that is capable of real love, and that's part of the question. That's part of what's interesting about this film. That's part of what's great, truly great about this film is that it doesn't have an easy answer for that. It's not conclusive. It's up to the viewer. Horrifying to consider, but it's there for us to gnaw on and chew on. And movies, great art does this where there's not usually a simple answer. It's about exploring these questions. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just so well done and moving. I think that's also what makes Oppenheimer good in a lot of ways. I think there are people who think Oppenheimer has sort of a didactic message. In a certain way it does, but it also has those questions about morality, you know? Is this person a good person, even though they were trying to do something, wasn't necessarily evil, but resulted in evil things, you know, like the consequences of people's actions and intent and what that all means. Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, they're going to be big in like awards season and everything. Not that any of it matters. I think Oppenheimer will seize the day, so to speak, just because it's made a lot more money and has the hype going around it more. And I think that this movie is just it's a lot harder to stomach. Like, it's just a really unglamorous. A lot of times Scorsese films, we think of like the flashy violence that's brutal, but also with pop music and is entertaining in a way. And that's not this movie. The violence is really ugly, and it's just about a community dying. And like, you watch that first scene, just the first scene of this movie was so like jolting and moving and very sad that it really just set the tone for the whole film. And I was like, wow, okay, we're diving in. Like, it was just incredible. And I do want to say, I was a little unsure about the fourth wall breaking at the end because I thought, it's a little, I don't know, a little too self-aware. I don't know, but I like it now. I thought that the radio play was great, but then when Scorsese comes on screen, it's kind of like, it's bold. It's bold choice. I'm not saying it's bad, but I do wonder if that was the right call for a movie basically about the Osage people and them losing so much, losing their voice and their land, their everything. And the end of the movie, the final lines being spoken by the director, it felt more like I'm not saying this is what I think necessarily. I'm just saying you could argue that it's Scorsese like speaking for them literally at the end of the film rather than just representing or showing the story. Like, I don't know. Like, and the questions about if Scorsese should make this movie, etc. Like, of course, I think absolutely, like, he has every right and did I thought, an amazing job. Yes, it'd be much better if an Osage person was to make this film, or just more Native Americans were making films at all. That'd be amazing. But I don't think like Scorsese as an artist has to not make or attempt to make this art. I don't know what else to say here. Go watch Killers of the Flower Moon. Obviously, if you're watching spoilers, you probably already have. We'll be back soon. Hope all is well with all of you, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.